Now, through all the excitement about the draft, through all the excitement about the other free agency signings, I think we have not really done a full Jadeveon Clowney film breakdown. So that's what we're going to do today. But before I get into that, before I get into the dungeon and do those things that I normally do with the film, I want to give a shout out to the patreon.com dog check tier members. And I'm going to start with Fred Pratt III, David Vautier, Relentless Buck, Chunt, Rex Kaufman, The Real Quincy Carrier, Kevin Johnson, Marino V, Cleveland Cart, Matt H, Sign Sheets, Gemini, Fight Dirty 74, Yo-Yo, Matt Lloyd, Paul Wilcox, Hundo Magnifico, Rob Ferron, Kyle Stouffer, Lukey from Munich, Dave Roth, J Guy 101, Joe Bobby, Brad Calvo, Dylan W, James McGinley, Arenda Hall, Chad Gimme, David Maldonado, Dylan Hale, Josh Bendor, Mark M, TJ Showman, Stuart Moore, Cleveland BCI, Robert Jermaine Jr., Dave Mike May, John Cummings, Andrew Hirsch, Curtis Bear, Brock Kumar, John Albert, Masayua, Buds Roland, James Nemo, Mac House, Reeve Hertz, Philip Wilcoxon, Marie Vivert, Sean Barron, Goggles Pisano, Corporal Nick Lopez, Dom Gazzulo, Nick Nasty, Ian Whitaker, Colin 216, Anthony Latham, Christian, Dave Strong, Matt Stone, Charles Work, Billy Moose Gentry, Mark Burnett II, Andre Griffin, Otis Wolf, Dog Pound Kai, Greg Ehlers, Austin Bolin, Kirkabar, Lydia Mahawk, Jesus Serrano, Chris Phones, Picktown Browns backers, Mark Kahn, Max Owl Dojo, and Water Bear Marketing. Again, guys, thank you for sticking with me throughout the off season. Now let's get this film out and let's break it down and talk about why Jadeveon Clowney is going to help the Cleveland Browns in 2021. All right, so since Clowney has been signed, I don't think I've had an opportunity to kind of break down Clowney and thoroughly explain why I'm so excited, why Clowney's on this team, what I think he's going to bring, and to clear up some of the misconceptions about Clowney. Because what you hear when you hear Jadeveon Clowney signed with the Browns from skeptics is that they bring up the fact that he's only had 3 sacks in the last, 3 years or something like that. Now, there's a whole argument that you can get into about pressures versus sacks, right? The ideal that quarterback pressures are a more accurate barometer to evaluate whether a defensive end is really getting their job done and really being productive, versus sacks, which can sometimes be more about the quarterback than it is about the defensive lineman that's trying to sack them. You know, it's more of a cosmetic stat instead of a stat that has real value in somebody's value on the football field, right? There's a real argument there. If you want to learn more about that, just know that I'm somebody who values pressures just a little bit more than sacks. Now, I'm not going to go overboard on it, right? He does need to increase his sack production. And I think there are going to be things that he does that will increase the sack production for others and maybe even himself. And we're going to go through that. But also, I want to show you why it is that pressures are actually meaningful and why pressures are actually valuable when you talk about trying to evaluate a player like Jadeveon Clowney, who might not have insane sack production, but his pressures are up there with the top defensive ends in football. So we're going to go through here and watch his first play. And this is the first thing you always notice with Jadeveon, right, is that he is a great, and I mean great, run defender. He's probably one of the better run defenders in football. Now, some people would tend to hand wave that. Well, we know he can stop the run, and that's really only the good thing that Clowney can do. But he does it at such a high level that if this were the only thing that Clowney could do, he would be a good player. He can do more, but he can also do this very well. And you're going to see here, this is a full frontal run the ball formation, 2 tight ends on the line of scrimmage. You got the fullback here. This is right out the Cleveland Browns playbook. They're running the ball, and they're going to try to overpower the defensive line of the Seattle Seahawks. But just watch how disciplined Clowney is and how well he plays this. You're going to see Clowney right here on the edge, and you're going to see how disciplined he plays this. Yeah. He crashes into the pulling guard. So you see the pulling guard crash. He sticks, holds his own ground. Now he has eyes up. He knows where the ball is. And the one thing you're going to notice while watching Clowney is that he is really good at finding the ball. Finds ball, gets the ball, makes the play. Now, again, look what he had to withstand. I know when we were talking about Azeez Ojulari on this channel, that was one of the things I was impressed with and why I thought Ojulari would eventually become a good run defender is because Ojulari is strong. So is Jadeveon Clowney, right? Takes the guard pull, knows how to absorb that contact, and then ends up with this hip square. And then bam, makes the play. That's routine for Jadeveon. He does that a lot. We're going to see the end zone angle from here, and you're just going to see a better view of it. And again, this isn't a slouch. This is 2019 versus the San Francisco 49ers. This is Joe Staley when he was still good, I believe, out there. And this is a team that eventually went to the Super Bowl. So this is not the slouch injured 49ers of last year. Obviously, Clowney's playing for the Seahawks. This is a very good 49ers team. And you're going to see him eat and then turn. And again, it's small, but it makes a huge difference because the Browns didn't have another edge that could do that. And I'm going to show you guys this series of plays. And this is what I mean when people don't value QB hits, they don't value pressures, they miss out on a lot of football, and they don't really understand what's really going on in the game sometimes, right? So Clowney, he's going to be lined up on this side because he does line up all over the place. It's kind of difficult, so I got to make sure I stay on discipline to highlight him. But he's going to line up here this time. And again, he gets a little double. He gets loose with it pretty easily. And then boom, he gets there. He doesn't really sack Jimmy Garoppolo, but he hits him pretty hard. That affects the throw. He kind of has to rush that throw because you see that's targeted towards 11. And in all reality, right, this is an out to what, Quentin Patterson? I don't know who that is. But this is an out. He has that beat, zone coverage, the man's playing off. He has that beat. That ball should be right there. Jimmy should be able to throw that there, make that play, but he sees Jadeveon that rushes his footwork and he knows he's going to get hit. That affects the play, and all of a sudden something that would have been, a 25-yard completion is incomplete. You can't tell me that doesn't have value, right? And again, we're going to see this from the end zone angle. He follows the tight end, motions up, and then, does this nice little Euro step. You see Miles do this too, where he has this nice Euro step. And the thing with Clowney, people see his 40 time and see that he's an athletic specimen and think he does the same things that Miles does. He doesn't. We'll get to that later. But he does use that quickness, right? Euro, hands off, makes a man all over his ankles, gets loose. And, he pressures Jimmy Garoppolo, makes him have to throw the hair early, and then a bad ball. And then the play right after this is the next play. Right after this, right? Same thing happens. You see Clowney's lined up on the same side of the field. Let me highlight him. And then he's going to get pressure 2 plays in a row, right? They shift. They send 2 guys on him. He gets rid of him. Eyes upfield. He always knows where the ball is and definitely affects that pass. It almost gets intercepted. Again, Jadeveon Clowney affecting things. These aren't sacks. These don't go officially towards any stats other than pressure, but these are important, right? That was a first down. The last play was 25 yards. These are all plays that did not happen because Jadeveon Clowney was right there, forcing a bad pass. That almost was intercepted. And now you saw this, right? 2 plays in a row. Jadeveon Clowney got that pressure. Now that does something to the quarterback. That does something to the offense. Obviously, it's third down, so they're going to be in shotgun regardless. But again, Jadeveon's gotten in his face and hit him twice. So that's going to affect how fast he wants to get rid of this ball. And you see Jadeveon don't even get that much pressure this time. But the second he sees Jadeveon go across his peripheral, he gets rid of this ball and throws an interception. Pressures matter. Pressures affect games. Pressures change things. Now we're going to look at this play. Now, this is what Jadeveon doesn't do well and why I think the misconception is, because I think there are 2 Jadeveon Clowneys when people talk about him. There's a Jadeveon Clowney that's on tape that people know, and there's a Jadeveon Clowney that people kind of create in their mind, right? They see the 40 time, they see the athletic specs, the crazy specimen that Jadeveon Clowney is, and they kind of put this portrait of a player together that's more or less like Myles Garrett, right? When you think of Jadeveon Clowney. A lot of people who don't really go in and watch film, and not everybody does that, obviously, they think of Jadeveon Clowney as like a Myles Garrett. So you think he can do some of the things that Myles Garrett can do. Both are great athletes. Jadeveon Clowney actually ran a better 40, but Myles plays with a more athletic style than Jadeveon. If you see Jadeveon, it's a lot of quickness and it's a lot of hands and strength that he uses to get to the quarterback or to create pressure. When you watch Myles, Myles uses speed, Myles uses his freakish strength, and Myles uses that incredible bend that he has. He has a much more athletic style than Clowney, even though technically you can make the argument that Clowney's more athletic, but still not the same ball get off as Myles Garrett. And this is a key example of where he's different than what people would think of Clowney being, right? You see this, Clowney has a little bit of a jump. If this is Myles Garrett, you already know what's going to happen. He's going to put that left arm underneath the armpit of that tackle, and he's going to bend. That's what Myles Garrett would do, because Myles Garrett has incredible dip and bend, and he's able to do that. Clowney has no bend. Like, he doesn't bend well at all. So when he gets in that position, he kind of gets locked up here. So if you're thinking about using or thinking that Jadeveon Clowney is going to be used similar to Myles Garrett as far as what pass rush situations you want to put him in, that's not correct. They're very different pass rushers. Jadeveon Clowney is a more physical, more technical pass rusher. In Myles Garrett, he has those athletic gifts and he plays like it. Like, he has a freakish and athletic play style that's much different than Jadeveon, but I do think they can complement each other, because Jadeveon does something really well that I think will lead to sacks for Myles Garrett. This is a play here, and it's going to highlight two things: how good Jadeveon is against the run, and also how good he is at finding the ball here, right? Jadeveon's on the line of scrimmage. He's the end here on the left side. I have him highlighted, and we're going to see him on this play. Again, this is a little wide receiver end around, and a lot of guys get fooled, right, on this kind of play, because it's designed to make you get fooled. But you'll notice on play actions, a lot of things, Jadeveon has a good sense for where the ball is, or has a good eye for where the ball is. So he kind of snuffs that out so it never gets going. And you'll notice this when you watch Jadeveon, that he has a good sense for where the ball is. So things like this don't really trick him as much as it would other defensive ends. I know, just off the top of my head, Paul Kruger and Barkevious Mingo. Paul Kruger wasn't a terrible edge rusher, but this was one of the things that drove you crazy about Paul Kruger, was that he could never find the ball, right? He would just kind of go in blind and pass rush. With Jadeveon, it's not the issue. He will find the ball. Like, he is freakishly good at finding the ball. He has good eyes for it, and you're going to see that a couple times here, more or less. And also, right, while you're watching him completely blow up this end around that the Niners were trying to do to Deebo Samuel, imagine now Myles Garrett is on the other side. Where are teams going to run stuff like this, right? Because you're not going to want to run this kind of misdirection towards Jadeveon, because he's really good against the run, and part of him being really good against the run is he's really good at finding the ball. Right, he can get rid of this guy, and he uses that speed that he has, that 4.5 40 that he has, to kind of get out and chase and get a hand on somebody like Deebo, who has 4.3 speed. So that's an issue on one side. If you try to run this on the other side, and instead of Michael Kendricks or whoever that is out there, it's Myles Garrett, that's a whole nother problem, right? Because you ain't necessarily trying to directly run plays towards Myles Garrett, when Myles Garrett can dismiss your blocker and be just as fast on the edge. So that's going to be a conundrum. Running outside on this team, like a team like the Titans, who already struggled against the Browns when they had Myles Garrett out there, they're not going to be able to do a lot of things that they like to do against the Cleveland Browns, because they should be theoretically really good against the runs, especially against the edge, because Jadeveon's really good at finding the ball. And again, Myles is just a freak on the defensive side of the football. This is another example of a play that's not a sack, right? None of these plays are sacks, but they're definitely affecting the game, right? He gets double teamed here. And again, two linemen, right? He kind of just falls into the other one. And I think that's something that affects Jadeveon's sack production when you watch him a lot. It's a small detail, but I think it does have an effect. he doesn't have the greatest sense of where his body should be on the field or where his body is on the field. So you'll see a lot of times he'll run into another tackle or run into another block that might slow him down just a little bit so he doesn't get a sack here. Like, I don't want to say he's clumsy because he's not clumsy, but sometimes I think he's so focused on where the ball is and finding the ball that he kind of loses track of where his body is and what moves that allows him to do here, right? Because he kind of goes inside, which just pulls him real close to that guard. That guard picks him up. Now, he's Jadeveon Clowney, so he just breaks free of that, and he forces a very bad pass here. Now, again, he should probably get this sack, but you don't get nothing here, right? He almost throws a terrible pass. What was that by Jimmy Garoppolo? These are the things that Jadeveon does really well. Now, again, you saw this play. Now, I want you to imagine how different this play would be with Myles Garrett on the other side. Because, yeah, this was just an incompletion. Jadeveon got there, but they had to kind of use two guys on him or incidentally use two guys and ran all this motion on his side. Well, let me tell you something. If Jadeveon forces this dude to go towards Myles Garrett like this, right, Myles Garrett's coming and cleaning that up, you know, or Owusu Koramoah or Sione Takitaki or whatever linebacker they send. See, when Clowney gets this close, when he has help, when he's a number 2, the difference is going to be that somebody's going to be there to clean that up, and you're going to get that sack. So that pressure is going to turn into production. It might not be put under Jadeveon Clowney's category, but I promise you he'll have a massive effect on where that goes. Again, the sack numbers are one thing, but pressure still matter. Now, this is what Jadeveon does best, right? This is like if you want to see where Jadeveon's at his best, where he's most natural and how he wins most of the time, you're going to want to watch him on this side, and he wins with his hands, his strength, and his quickness. He doesn't win with his bendiness. He's never been a bendy guy, but he wins with those traits that he has here, right? Hands, gets inside, and once he can get that inside lane, that's the most key thing with Jadeveon, right? You want to give him space to his inside shoulder, because the more space you give him, the less opportunity he has to kind of run himself into a double team, which he has the tendency to do. Now, you know, that's just Jimmy Garoppolo panicking, getting rid of the ball and getting lucky, right? Now, again, you can argue Myles Garrett be there to clean that up. Somebody going to get a hand up, Malik Jackson, something like that. You know, that's just good fortune for Garoppolo. And he does have, to Garoppolo's credit, Garoppolo has a really, really quick release, so he doesn't get sacked a ton regardless. But this is what you want to do with Clowney, right? You want to find a way to kind of give him space on that inside shoulder so he can just run free, right? And with Myles Garrett on the other side taking up a lot of that congestion, you're not going to have Jadeveon really be in that congested space next to Myles a lot. So he's going to be free to do stuff like this. Yeah, shout out to Jimmy Garoppolo. Quick release, got rid of the ball. You know what I mean? Did his thing. But look at the hands here. That's how Jadeveon wins. He wins with his hands, and he wins when you give him space on that inside shoulder, because that's Joe Staley, and he wins that battle. That's what you want to do with him. Another thing you want to do is put him in positions to find the football, because Jadeveon will find the football. You're going to see him on the right side of the offensive line here. He rushes, finds the football, scoops it, and scores. He did something like that at South Carolina, right, when he hit the dude from Michigan. He just found the ball. Like, he can find the ball. He just has that trait where he can find the football. You're going to see in this game when he's on the Titans now, right? This is last year's tape against Jacksonville, him finding the football. It's a weird trait that he has, and I don't know if that affects him, because sometimes he does seem to, like, lose track of where his physical space is, and he runs into stuff. But just finding the football, right? Everybody's forward on this play. They do a protection slide and everything. Jadeveon just watches the ball, knows where it's at, and then I'm just get to the quarterback. And then forces an interception almost, right? He's great at finding the football. So you do two things with Jadeveon, and he'll be in the position to do this year, because he's not the main guy on the defense or the main edge rusher. He's the number 2 dude. He's going to be in position to get space on that inside shoulder, which you want. And also he's going to be in position to just be able to find the football, because that's what he does really well, right? He stops the run. Part of that's because he could just find the football wherever it is. And he's a good pass rusher if you just give him space on that inside shoulder. And I think they'll be able to do that this year. But that's my take. That's my film review on Jadeveon Clowney. Let me know if this review has you more excited, less excited. Let me know your thoughts on Jadeveon Clowney, what he's going to bring to the Browns here. But thank you guys for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.